Changes in a landscape are driven by natural forces and human activities. These changes can significantly impact people's lives and economies. When landscapes change, people's livelihoods, health and overall well-being are affected. But even more significantly, development is impacted by affecting ecosystems and water resources.
When we talk about the changing landscapes and changing lives, one would define that as the activities that are done in a given area to, of course, improve the livelihood of a society or communities, but also effects or activities that will change, the way the landscape is. Some of them could include agricultural activities as one of them. Others, of course, are residential developments and alteration to either a water course or even land in general where residential units are. That is what would be termed as changing landscape and changing lives. Because ultimately, whatever happens, the lives of individuals or societies or communities will actually be changed in a way.
Population growth and economic activities often determine landscape changes. Agriculture, urbanization and infrastructure development are major drivers of landscape change. Unfortunately, most of these developments do not consider the problems that are caused as a result of building along rivers or streams and water catchment areas.
Currently, as a Lonsemfwa Hydropower Company, we are sitting within two catchments. One of them is Mulungushi, the other one is Lonsemfwa. When we talk about the Mulungushi catchment, I think this is one catchment that in a way hasn't seen so much change. However, I think the changes that we've seen include sand mining, where there's been, because of this boom in the construction of houses within Kawe, we've seen that there is an increase in sand mining. And obviously that is mined in certain areas or Richard zones. So that is already an alteration, within the landscape itself. The other, of course, change that we've seen is, like I've alluded to, is the development of housing units. You find that most of these housing units that are being built, some of them are sitting very close to water courses, but others from the Richard zones themselves. And so you begin to see this number of increase of housing units within the Mulungushi catchment. And obviously, that will definitely have an effect on the landscape of the catchment, but also have an effect of how much runoff do we get in any river. For example, Mulungushi River, which of course is our main river where Mulungushi Dam is sitting for generation of power by Mulungushi Power Station or at Mulungushi Power Station. The other one, of course, is Lonsemfwa catchment, where we have the Lonsemfwa Hydro Scheme sitting. The changes that we've seen, starting from about 1999 to about 2013, thereabout, we've seen that, of course, there was an increase in terms of agriculture activities. Of course, well intended. We need food at the end of the day. But that increase, which has been seen from the ranges of about 6,000 hectares to about 13,000 hectares under irrigation within this catchment, that has also brought about changes within the Lonsemfwa catchment. And of course, the effect of that is that the amount of water that is available for downstream users, in a way, I think has more or less been affected. So that is a kind of landscape or land use change that we've seen within the two catchments.
One of the biggest challenges that we've faced in our operations is management of catchment areas. This has really had a huge impact on our operations. We have been heavily impacted, especially on the Lonsemfwa Power Station. Lonsemfwa Power Station is what is supposed to provide the water for this project. Already, the dam has not been able to fill up in the past, I would say almost 10 years, because of the way the headwaters have been managed in the catchment. Over the years, we have actually spent quite a lot of money trying to do some hydrological assessment in the catchment. And what we realize is that this catchment has been overstressed. And our hope has always been that as things stand, just to be able to preserve the existing investment, government probably needed to ensure that there are no more permits issued in such areas. If with the current situation, we have not been able to fill the reservoir, meaning that we've not been able to operate the plant at its optimum. Usually the performance of that power station has been usually maybe at 50%. You cannot go beyond. Most of the time you find that by September, July to September, the plant is off. Why? The water would have run out. You may have sufficient rains, but your reservoirs will not still get the amount of water that you require for you to operate at optimum. At most, the highest that you'll be able to get to is maybe 60-70% of the plant.
Activities ranging from increase in agriculture, cutting of trees, development of unplanned dams have created stress in downstream developmental activities, among them the production of hydropower, particularly in the catchment areas of Lunsemfwa and Mulungushi rivers.
We are about 7.1 kilometers upstream the tailwaters of Mita Hills Reservoir. In terms of the activities that of course go on around here and those that are visible, we know that upstream there is agriculture activities being done, obviously irrigation is being done. Downstream between this point and Mita Hills Reservoir, I know there's mining activities but also gardening along the path of this river downstream. So those are the activities that I think are actually visible or that can be pointed at as taking place.
Changes in the character of a landscape will often lead to negative consequences that affect biodiversity, climate inconsistency, to resources that affect the quality of human life. Deforestation or urbanization can easily change temperature and rainfall patterns, exacerbating the impacts of extreme weather like drought and floods, or the other way round.
The understanding, I think, would be that when you augment the various gardening activities being done, we expect that we have probably a bigger, kind of, is it the abstraction? For those small scale, we can call them small scale agriculturists, or those that are basically growing crops, mainly gardening. Then, of course, we have the bigger, the commercial, farmers who are abstracting from the same river. Obviously, the abstraction, I think, is more or less on a large scale. So those are the two uses that one would point to. But also, I think there's mining that requires, water for processing. Yeah, I think these are the three maybe classes of water use that can be pointed at within this stretch that we are in.
Activities such as mining, commercial and small-scale farming all use a lot of water in their activities. Normally, however, this is done without consideration of other undertakings either on the various up or downstreams. The result, swamps and streams in catchment areas leading into main rivers drying up.
In terms of the message that we'd want to send across, first and foremost, it's an issue of equitable use of the water resource. I think WAMA, of course, and of course the other authorities that are involved in the process of granting permits and of course approving projects that require water use, it's important that I think we understand the extent of the water resource available within any given catchment, so that in the event that there's new investment coming in, investments that will require water use, there has to be consideration for those already within that catchment, accessing the same resource. I think that would be the first one. The second one, I think, to the locals, it has to do with the managing of the water resource through managing our environment. I think we've seen the cutting down of trees along the banks of the river. That we know has an effect of causing siltation or silting or sedimentation of our river. So it's important that our communities are actually sensitized to ensure that they don't cut down trees, because we know that that leads to excessive erosion. The other, of course, is on the trees that we are seeing where there's a lot of charcoal burning. That, I think, is another area that requires attention of government to move in to sensitize the community to ensure that that is reduced. But I think it's important that there is consideration given for water users who are already existing within the given catchment.
The rise in integrated farming ventures from 1999 to 2024, barely 25 years, has shown massive increased agricultural activities resulting in serious consequences for LHPC in energy and electricity production.
Yeah, I think the key thing is an integrated approach that I would say has been more or less lacking, and the synergy between the different water users and of course entities that are supposed to work collaboratively to ensure that there is an integrated approach in terms of the planning, but also the water utilization or water use. So what should happen is that I think in any form of planning, we need to ensure that all key stakeholders that in a way affected in whatever way are brought on board, and of course there's an integrated approach in terms of planning, but also the use or utilization of resources within any given catchment. I think one of the things that we want to say is that we want to see every sector thriving: agriculture sector, hydropower, and of course any other developments that will bring economic improvement to the country at the end of the day. So there has to be that integrated approach in terms of the planning. We know that climate change is real, but also there is also need to ensure that the survival of any business entity that requires water as a resource. We know that water is first and foremost a social good, but it's also an economic good. So there has to be a balance between this aspect and of course access to this water resource. I think that would be the message. So we need to up our game in terms of engaging ourselves as stakeholders and ensuring that we look at how do we share this resource equitably, and ensure that there is access to this resource by all water users. Number one, I think let's take care of environment. We need to ensure that our environment is well taken care of. The cutting down of trees, indiscriminate cutting down of trees, and of course the charcoal burning that we are seeing, I think those are things that should be controlled. But importantly, like I've said, it's an issue of sitting on the table and ensuring that we look at all water users within the given catchment and of course allocate the resource equitably. I think that would be a message that to send out.
Is it too late for solutions or an integrated approach?
The level at which we are, I would say we are not too late. We can, I think, in a way control, manage what we have. But that, I think, requires that there is a serious stakeholder engagement at all levels. And we need to ensure that all the governance structures that are provided for within any piece of law are basically brought to a place where they're able to sit on the table and of course plan right from the very least possible parcel of land that is available, even water resource itself. I think there has to be that connection.
But of course, not leaving out the locals and communities that dwell in these areas.
To the communities around here, tulera ndokobati mwila temefi muti. Pantu ngambula temefi muti filale ngati amalo bayonse aba mumbali yale sa mumana. Elo ifya kocha malasha na fyo tulera ndokobati bafuire bali kocha malasha. Pamano ndokobati kocha malasha bala temefi muti. Elo efimuti fingi fisangwa kunchendo kwa bamenshi limbi kuntula amenshi for example. So fionse fe bafuire bale kokitefe ba community. I think that would be a simple message we can send out to the community.
Indeed, climate change is real, particularly for the survival of a business whose mission is to contribute to national energy capacity growth while creating wealth for shareholders in a sustainable manner that adds value to the community.